This is why you don't bring your girlfriend to a final showdown between yourself and the main villain of a movie. Bad things just happen. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Released in 2014 and is directed by Mark Webb, who is also behind such films like 500 Days of Summer, Gifted, and The Only Living Boy in New York. And this movie is starring Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, Jamie Foxx, Colm Feore, Paul Giamatti, Dane DeHaan, and Sally Field. And the reason why we're talking about The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is because we are continuing our series of Spider-Man in movies leading up to the release of Spider-Man No Way Home later on this month, and also to the release of my ranking of all of the Spider-Man movies in mainstream media, going all the way back to 1977, those good old Spider-Man pilots. And I know I talked about it last time, but you talk about a movie and you talk about a franchise that really had no idea what they were doing, just kind of shoehorning everything into the film. It's The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy have graduated from high school and are figuring out their next paths in their lives. Gwen Stacy plans to study abroad, while Peter Parker is trying to establish himself more as the Amazing Spider-Man. But at the end of the original Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker made a promise to Gwen Stacy's dying father to leave Gwen Stacy out of harm's way. So in this movie, they have an off-again, on-again, off-again, on-again relationship. All in the meantime diving more into the conspiracy behind Oscorp that really takes its toll on Max Dillon, who has an accident in the Eel Electric Lab and is now able to harness the power of electricity and calls himself Electro. And he runs amok all throughout the city, and then we also have Harry Osborn here, who is dying and needs Spider-Man's blood to save his disease that affected his father way later on in life, but is affecting Harry right now because plot and reasons. And he may or may not have a kind of greenish goblin type path in his near future. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, actually the highest grossing Spider-Man movie at that time in 2014. And yet the lowest rated on Rotten Tomatoes, even though the scoring of Rotten Tomatoes, it's not like an official score or anything. It's just a combining average of all of like certified reviewers and critics and everything compiling their scores. So, you know, we're not gonna go diving down that Rotten Tomatoes rabbit hole. So it does the best financially, yet everyone seems to just hate this thing. And hate it so much that the planned Sinister Six film that they were going to do, and then also an Amazing Spider-Man 3 film that they were wanting to do, gets canned, and Marvel Studios swoops in and brings Spider-Man into the MCU and reboots the damn thing again. I mean, this whole situation is very clear that Spider-Man is the most popular character in Marvel. Marvel Comics, Marvel Films, everything. Spider-Man is to Marvel what Batman is to DC. I mean, everything just revolves around these characters. And it makes me feel so bad for Andrew Garfield because he tapped into something that was so pure to me and so realistic of who Peter Parker and Spider-Man is. I loved reading the Brian Michael Bendis series Ultimate Spider-Man. That was Spider-Man to me. He was funny, he was quirky, he was a kid in high school, yes, but there was also this darkness to him and this depression that he was dealing with and the villains that he was going after. They were a lot darker and they were willing to take a lot more people hostage and kill a lot more people than what we are accustomed to in what we had seen up to this point in the Spider-Man movie franchise. And I keep saying it, Andrew Garfield is the perfect Spider-Man and Peter Parker, just in the wrong movies, and I feel terrible for him. You know, the Sam Raimi films I would equate to like your long-term relationship. Like your very first one that lasted a very long time, you two were great friends, but then you had to split ways because you were just going in different directions. So in order to get back out into the dating world and maybe find that Mr. and Mrs. Right again, you gotta go on the rebound. That's what the Amazing Spider-Man films are. These films are the rebound guy or girl. Like, it has good qualities, it has some great things about them, but really, we're not gonna go anywhere with them. We're just having a good time while it lasts. Which is a shame, because there are some amazing scenes in this film. When Electro is first realizing his powers in Times Square, and he's not wanting to shoot people up with electricity, but then gets anger inside of him and starts shooting everyone and shooting cars, and Spider-Man is there trying to get everyone not touching metal things and taking them out with a fire hydrant. That whole scene is beautiful to watch and is perfect. And hell, even the climax of this movie at the power grid, and also the final battle with the Harry Osborn greenish goblin, whatever he was, that was stunning. The web shooter reaching out and trying to catch Gwen Stacy. Only, I mean, those of us who are fans of Spider-Man from the comics, we know what was happening in that scene. That whole sequence, though, is stunning and is beautiful, and it's sad and it's traumatizing, and it's what's needed for the Spider-Man curse, the Spider-Man mythos. But that's what this movie is. It is a cut and paste of really great scenes that are great on their own, but if you put them all together and try to establish a fluid plot, it doesn't happen here. At first, it's a romantic comedy because Peter Parker is like, no, I can't be with you because I made a promise, but now I want to be with you, but I can't be with you again, and now I want to be with you again. And then we get into a monster movie with Jamie Foxx as Electro, who is basically Edward Nygma from Batman Forever. And then there's a whole government political conspiracy with Mr. and Mrs. Parker, who died on an airplane, but then also had the capability of creating like a secret lair in the Roosevelt train station. And the realization that they provide to Peter is that, hey, Oscorp was doing bad things, which I thought was what we already knew, but hey, it's a revelation. And then there is a buddy-buddy story here with Peter Parker and Harry Osborn, and then needing each other, but then one needing something, and Spider-Man's like, no, I don't want to give it to you because it's not safe, even though probably eventually you will get it. And then, you know, all together. There is so many different plots here that there is not one continuous main plot to follow. And in storytelling in films, well, that's a problem. I love the design of the suit, though. We have the white eyes on the Spider-Man mask, thankfully. In the previous one, The Amazing Spider-Man, he had, like, Ray-Ban lenses in there that was, like, cool and practical, but Spider-Man, he needs the white eyes, so to have him back here, I like it. CGI is drastically improved from the first Amazing Spider-Man, and hell, even the Raimi Spider-Man films. The CGI in here is awesome. The web slinging, the fighting, everything. I love it. And hell, even the score by Hans Zimmer is weird and interesting. I remember sitting in the theater opening weekend watching this film, and during the Times Square scene with Electro, you start hearing all of these voices. He shot at me, he spied at me, I hate him. It's all part of the score. I thought for sure with a surround sound in the theater that people were talking behind me. And I remember like looking back like, who the hell is talking? Only to find out, oh no, this is part of the score. This is in his mind. Oh wow, Hans Zimmer, that's actually really cool. Hans Zimmer doing something innovative and original with his score. How original, Hans Zimmer. The main problem with this movie though is that 2 years before the Avengers came out and the MCU was shooting off like a rocket, and they were putting all of these different characters in all of these different films, and the big thing in superhero films at that point was like, hey, the movie is called Iron Man, but is Captain America gonna show up? And Thor, is Iron Man gonna come in? Like, we want people to come in and do cameos because that's cool. And that's what Sony wanted to do with their Amazing Spider-Man films, so they're like, hey, well, let's cram in as many things in here as possible. Let's put the Rhino in there, and then we'll have a tease of Sinister Six, and that's gonna be our next movie, even though that movie is not gonna have Spider-Man in it at all, and then we'll eventually have an Amazing Spider-Man 3. Yeah, that's right. I remember news articles coming out after this movie was released that was the plan, and me just scratching my head saying, what? You can't do a Sinister Six film without Spider-Man. That's why the Sinister Six exist, is to go after Spider-Man. And I'm sure people at the company wonder why Disney was able to swoop in and get Spider-Man into their films. I mean, come on. I honestly wish this franchise would have continued, though, with The Amazing Spider-Man 3, because Andrew Garfield, again, I think is a great Spider-Man. He's my favorite Spider-Man / Peter Parker. It's just terrible timing, and he was not in the best films, or at least films that didn't know what they wanted to be. And all of that was impacting him and his career, unfortunately. But like I said, this film has great things in segments, but an overall plot and the overall through line here just doesn't work. But I'm gonna give The Amazing Spider-Man 2 3.5 out of 5 Blu-rays.
I am above average.
Alright everyone, we are going to be continuing our Spider-Man movie series leading up to the release of Spider-Man No Way Home, and the next Spider-Man movie we're going to be looking at, we're going to dive into the animated world, and hell, we're going to dive into the whole Spider-Man multiverse. That's right, we're looking at Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. A movie that won Best Animated Feature at that year's Oscars, and definitely deserved so, because watching the movie in theaters, I was in awe the entire time. And I haven't watched it in a little bit, but I remember this film being amazing. So we'll check out the Spider-Verse next time. If any of you have recommendations of films that you want me to review on here, you can make a PayPal donation on the main page of my YouTube channel. Any size donation will do, just attach your movie recommendation with your donation, and if I have access to it, I will watch it, review it, give you a shout out on the channel, and get my review of it published as quickly as I possibly can. So guys, if you've seen The Amazing Spider-Man 2, what did you think about it? Or if you've never seen it before and you stumbled across it because of this video, then comment below, let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell so you know the next time I'm releasing my next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time with my review of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.